Guys, my name is Linda Barcy. I am an online screenwriting teacher as well as a writing coach, and today I have a class for you. It's a recording of a class that I taught about 3 weeks ago. So things have been a little bit stressful for the US, and I imagine it's probably made NaNoWriMo a little hard for many of the people doing it. So I wanted to post this class as just a way to maybe help you feel less alone, to just build you back up, and just remind you why you decided to do this, and that it is a wonderful project and that it deserves time and love and all you're gonna give it while you work on this first draft or second draft or whichever stage you're at. So in this video, I talk about a bunch of topics I love when it comes to writing process, how to get yourself fueled up and inspired to keep writing when you feel run down. Some of those topics include writing with urgency as opposed to writing while hurrying. It's just about mindset. It's about having a different mindset when you write, how you can create a sustainable writing practice so that you can, in the long run, write much more. And then in this class, I also talk about how to create your dream book and how to focus your writing draft, your first draft, on creating the book you wish existed on bookshelves so that you could read it. And that's a really fun place to start a book project from, because it reminds you that you are the most important audience member and your opinion about this book is the one that matters the most. I also cover some things like outlining, is it necessary? And then finally, why the word maybe is so empowering, especially while outlining and especially while writing a part you're not quite sure what to do with, and actually while revising. All of that is discussed in this recorded class, and this recorded class is actually just one class in a series. I've been teaching it for 3 weeks. There's going to be 6 more weeks of me teaching it. It's called Next Level Nano, Unlocking Your Writing Process. The idea behind it is how you can embrace NaNoWriMo, not just for the month of November, but also for, as long as it takes to create your dream book. It's a lot of fun, and there's another class tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific and 9 p.m. Eastern. So I'd love for you to join. It's on Zoom. It's free. You can just join by clicking the Zoom link in the description below. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. The focus of this and why I'm calling this class Next Level Nano is because I want this group going in to really think about writing this novel as not just like for November, but really for like the long haul. Like, the whole idea around this topic is just basically filled with stuff that I wish I could go back and tell 23-year-old me when I was doing NaNoWriMo for the second time. And I was like, oh, I've learned so much since the first time I did it. And I still didn't know a lot of things relating to my writing process and really how to get the most out of that and really nourish my writing process so that I could become what it needed to be. So why NaNoWriMo is great? NaNoWriMo is great because there is a deadline, and I feel like so much of your life as a writer is kind of bouncing between these two images of the love of storytelling and all the wonderful parts of it, and also just making sure it gets done, because in order to get to those moments of delightful inspiration, you also just have to handle a lot of different, you have to sit down and separate yourself from social circumstances in order to be able to make time to write, which is why deadlines are good. Deadline is just, you must complete this by this, and the pros of deadlines are many. They are really freeing, and they take the choice out of the equation, rather than hemming and hawing about it and saying, oh, I don't know if I was write today, and a deadline just takes a lot of that out of the equation and makes you more likely to write more often. But by the way, I definitely don't follow the school of thought that you have to write every day in order to be a good writer. I think it's much more complicated than that, and it involves momentum and a practice, and also understanding that it's just not going to be possible to write every day of your life or every day during the week. But a deadline brings a lot of good things. They're proven to work, and they inspire a sense of urgency, which is great. And I have a picture of a construction site because I love playing the game of figuring out which construction projects in my city are ones funded by money that will disappear as soon as the new year starts, because that funding will go away.
Because like that's the power of a deadline. Those projects get done. And if that construction project doesn't have a deadline, you'll see that like construction project going on for years and years. So, which is also very applicable to what can happen with a book. Okay, so the cons of an ambitious deadline. There are cons. And I feel like with NaNoWriMo, like there's such a celebratory attitude that we don't often talk about the cons, but there are some, and I think like just getting them out in the open can spark a conversation that's like even more helpful and positive and leads to more celebration throughout the process. So an ambitious deadline, it can be stressful, which isn't bad. There's like a good stress, just like there's kind of like a good creative unrest that makes you want to make something and makes you unsatisfied if you don't make that thing. But because it's an ambitious deadline, it can also mean it becomes easy to devalue self-care, which, you know, I feel like, especially in American culture, it's like, yeah, but like, I'm fine. And it's like, sure, you're fine. But we're going to talk about like the long-term effects that that has on your writing process, which is why I think it's relevant to this conversation. And the other con is it can lead to hurrying. We'll go into more about like what hurrying versus urgency, because they sound like synonyms. And I also just want to note that there are more pros than cons with deadlines. I'm definitely like for deadlines. I'm pro them. I just think not having a black and white approach to it, like has to be done by this date or it's not worth anything. That's problematic, and we don't have to use that line of thinking. But yeah, overall, I love NaNoWriMo because there are so many more pros to a deadline in this kind of situation than cons. So the difference between urgency and hurrying, and why do we care? The difference between urgency and hurrying is really just about the mindset you're in while you write, which again, like I would argue probably doesn't matter that much like in the short term, but in the long term, which is what a novel requires, it is really going to matter, like these subtle differences in attitude that you have when you write, and also in just the habits you have that fill up your life when you're not writing. Many teachers, but this one teacher in particular that I had, I just remember something that he said was, writing is life, that there's no separation from it. And I think for comedy TV writers, that's like especially true, because in TV writers' rooms, they are always like encouraging people to like go have family time. Like if a group of writers work on a family sitcom, they're going to be like, yeah, go spend time with your family so that you can come back and tell us the crazy things that happen with your family. And we can use that in our stories to make relatable, entertaining content. So yeah, writing is life. So it matters what you do and the mindset you try to get yourself into, like not just while you're writing, but also while you're not writing. So what's the difference between urgency and hurrying? We'll start with hurrying. When you're in a hurried place, you're insecure and worried. You're more likely to doubt yourself. It becomes very easy to compare yourself to others, and it also becomes very easy to like freeze up. Well, and in writing, why we care about this is that hurrying can like lead to like a bit of burnout, and also feeling disconnected from your writing, from this first draft that you've spent a lot of time on. Urgency, and I've added a happy faces because really this is just like positive experience from writing overall versus a kind of one that leaves you drained and really not looking forward to revising. Urgency is the one that has a lot of good qualities, where you're still invested in this deadline, you have purpose, you're regularly getting into flow, you're showing up for your writing regularly. Again, doesn't have to be every day, it does not have to be the exact same time, but like you're showing up. You're also maybe aware, or it's just kind of like built into who you are, that like you are doing good, like you deserve self-respect, and you also you also deserve to enjoy your time while writing, and while just living your life. This is a bit of a tangent, but like I have a theory that like quite a few writers, that a part of the reason that they love writing is that it kind of masks their depression because writing is so hard that when you write a lot, it's really understandable to like, oh, I'm so drained, like I'm so stressed. But it's kind of a perfect like career if you are like scared to examine that. And I feel like a lot of reasons why people don't want to do that, don't want to like, for example, go to therapy if like they think they might be depressed is because they're worried that this is just who they are, that there isn't another way to write. But speaking from experience, I absolutely believe there is. Even if you think there isn't, even if you like cannot imagine writing from a place of joy and happiness and like where you feel good about yourself. 7 years ago, like right before I started my vlog, I remember vividly like a day when I woke up on a Saturday and was already like immediately like frustrated that I wasn't going to get everything I wanted done in a day. And I was also trying to become more aware of these negative thoughts, which is when I like started reading some self-help books. And by the way, I got this urgency and hurrying language from Jen Sincero, who wrote You Are a Badass, which is a very fun book and is actually the thing that really encouraged me to start a writing coaching profession. So I was reading self-help books for the first time and kind of realizing like, I can't imagine like waking up and just enjoying a Saturday. Like, cause I was happier when I was working because I at least could feel good about myself for being productive. Like, but it really took me a while to learn how to like enjoy myself. So yeah, urgency also has like openness characteristics, grace, which is kind of more of a religious linked word than I would like to use, but it's a good word because it's like gracious. And the thing that's great about having grace in your writing is because you allow yourself to take risks and then not beat yourself up for making a mistake or like wasting time, because you understand that it's all part of the process. And that also leads to discovery and finding a lot of things as you're writing the first draft that you didn't know you were going to find at an earlier stage. So that leads to a first draft with an ending that radiates of you-ness, because I think the difference between a writing process that's like work hard is that like you're gonna be able to write good stuff, but like will you be able to write the things that only you can write, the like perspective that only you could bring into the world, which requires a lot of honesty and like taking risks and a bunch of other things like that. Okay, so how do you write from a place of confident urgency rather than from a place of insecure worriedness? I would say you do that with healthy expectations and also a healthy environment. And I'm not just talking physically, but like mentally and physically a healthy environment. Surround yourself with things and thoughts that make it easier for you to be the happy face on the previous slide. And that's like where your writing process is specific to you, because these things are going to be unique to you and different for every person. So now I'd like to take a quick poll. You can just raise your hands. So how many of you have done NaNoWriMo before? Okay, cool. So next question is, how many of you who did NaNoWriMo got to 50,000 words? 3 out of the 4, it looks like. And then last poll question, how many of you did not have an ending for your story once you won, quote unquote? Okay, 2 people. Yeah, so that's like half of the, I mean, this is a very small focus group, obviously, but half of the people here didn't have an ending. And I mean, I'm selfishly like taking this poll because that just makes me feel better, because the 2 times I did NaNoWriMo, both times my story had 50,000 words, but it did not have an ending. And that was really hard on my writer self-esteem. It really kind of bummed me out. And so that's what brings me to the next slide, because I really think to get the most out of NaNoWriMo, you need to like step back and kind of go at it from a bigger picture approach, where you like make a promise to yourself that goes beyond just November. So I suggest any writer starting a novel to consider making this promise to their book. If you book draft, so now you're talking to your book draft. If you book draft do not have an ending by the start of December, aka the end of November, I will not hold it against you, and I will not hold it against me, which means I will resist burying you somewhere far from view to avoid feeling shame when I see you. And I will make sure to give you an ending as soon as possible, because we both deserve that. So this is like what I wish I could go back, even if I just like couldn't explain to my 23-year-old self like what the heck I was doing there. If I could just like drop this piece of paper on my like old desk that I used to have, this is what I would do. And I think that would send the message that like to my younger self that like this is the advice I'm trying to give. And I believe in this so much that I made a little form so you can go into a contract with yourself and your book draft, because it's really important. And yes, it sounds like, I don't know, maybe hokey, but a lot of self-help does. But the thing about it is it works. It's like, it works to be nice to yourself. It works to give your book grace and to like be understanding and to resist kind of like black and white rules oriented thinking, especially when it comes to creative projects. We're now going to transition kind of into like the outline discussion, like the actual like practical, what do you do while outlining? But before we do that, I want to go to our next slide, which is, okay, what's at stake here? Why does this matter? The difference between urgently writing versus hurrying? Like, I could totally understand anyone thinking that. But here's the thing about a first draft that I feel like a lot of writers don't want to talk about, because it's kind of a sad thought, but you only get to write your first draft once. So we had someone here like mentioning that they really enjoyed writing first drafts, but don't enjoy revising. And I think a way to make revising more fun is to like cultivate a lot of goodwill and good feeling during your first draft that will help you throughout your revision, whether that's through writing about something that makes you feel like excited and it's exhilarating, and also just like habits that you have that make your writing more fun for you to do, like practically sit down and do. But yeah, first drafts are really, really special. And like, I'm not a religious person, but the more I write, the more I get kind of like Oprah manifesty because like, or like Elizabeth Gilbert, like Eat, Pray, Love, because I feel like authors get more eccentric the older they get. Like successful authors who are published and stuff just get like kind of weird past a certain age, because they like start to talk about like the muse and stuff. But what they're doing is allowing themselves to like, in a weird way, like take less credit, but also like have less pressure on them, because they find it easier to write more if there's less pressure on them to like come up with the genius. Like I know Elizabeth Gilbert, I think, has a TED talk about like the muse, and it's kind of just like you catch a wave, like it's out of your control. Like you can surf, but like there's only so much you can control. First drafts, like I think it's really important to not question them too much. Like I got into so much trouble with this with grad school, where I would pride myself on how hard I could be on my first drafts. Like I really thought it was a good thing, and I thought it was what's gonna like set me apart as a writer, like that I'm ruthless, that like, you know, the writer phrase like kill your darlings. I was like, I'm so great at that. Like I don't have an ego about that. But then what happened like multiple times before I started to realize, oh, this is not working well, is that I would take apart the first draft and be so hard on it that essentially I was writing a second first draft of the thing I'd already written, which means all I'm doing is writing like a like less like a weird kind of like shell of the first version. Like it doesn't have that same spirit. And it was through like a couple very awkward workshops in grad school that like they had to be like, you did too much. Like they're like, you have to go back, where I was just like, but I did this, like, you know, it's just like there is a real cost to being too hard on yourself while writing. And that's something that I think is really important to talk about with like writers at an earlier stage. Like you don't have to suffer through it and then figure that out. Anyway, so yeah, you only get your first draft once. And so like, how do you make the most of it? Okay, so just kind of, I guess, to summarize that, yeah, I feel like the message we get, especially in American culture, is like productivity requires suffering. And so I have Google image pictures of people suffering, kind of millennial burnout, however you want to call it. I think there's the guy on the right is holding a guitar. And I feel like creatively, we often feel like to justify our decision to pursue a creative career, we have to like be really hard on ourselves, and like we have to suffer, because like how dare we pursue a career that like gives us joy? How dare we like not become an engineer or a doctor and go to school for 12 years or however? So we're gonna have to let that go in order to like find a writing process that like fuels us better, because the truth is productivity does not require suffering. Productivity can happen through a workflow that like allows you to suffer where you're very hard on yourself, but it's not the only way to get something wonderful done in a short amount of time. Because I would argue that a sustainable writing practice is even more productive than anything you accomplish while suffering, even though it might make you more comfortable to like be suffering for your art when you like see yourself from other people's points of view. But it's like, no, it's okay. Like, it's okay to enjoy yourself while doing this thing that you love. It doesn't make you less legitimate. And okay, so how do you create a sustainable writing practice? Again, we're slowly moving into like practical outlining methods. The key is to find your fuel as a writer. What makes you excited to write? What creates a healthy, happy environment for you as a writer, both like physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. If you want, also like expectations, not expecting that your draft is going to be exactly the way you want by the end of November. That expectation isn't going to serve you well either. So finding your fuel is going to help you focus on the positive and not like the consequences of like, what if I don't finish this by this point? So it's like, yeah, again, it might sound hokey, but like find what gives you hope in your book and in yourself. And that means finding what inspires you. Again, like music, books, movies, TV shows, art, playing with Play-Doh, whatever it is that, you know, inspires you, make that a part of your writing process and don't apologize for it. Like, yes, someone might not understand that, like, when you're watching TV, that's part of your writing process, but it is. And I would argue that, like, one of the other big mistakes I made while in grad school, going to a program to learn about writing for screen and television, is that I did not let myself watch that much television. Like, I would like study it and I would like do story analysis, but it's like, no, just like enjoy it. Like, discover a new show. I didn't do enough of that. I was like so like strict and kind of like uptight. But yeah, you're just going to be more creative if you allow yourself to enjoy other people's creativities like music and books. And so yeah, find what gives you hope, find what inspires you, and find what makes you feel good about your writing. I am very for journaling. I found in my experience, the reason I didn't journal very much at all for years was because I just hated my handwriting. And I didn't think that was a problem, that I didn't want to journal because I didn't want to look at my handwriting, because I was like, but I love to type. I'm such a good typer. I type fast. It's great. It's fun to do. But typing just like feels more official. And in an idea generation stage where you want to come up with stuff, you want the pressure to be low. That blinking cursor is not going to be your friend necessarily at every stage of outlining, prepping for a first draft, writing first draft. So I recommend getting a journal. I just organize mine by date. I keep all my creative ideas in one journal because it's just easier. I find that if I try to have different journals for different projects, and you just like keep writing ideas down until you fill it up, and then you get a new one. And you don't put pressure on yourself for any of the ideas in that journal to be good. That's a way to feel better about your writing. Another way is to have a change of scenery. Like, again, like when you're kind of in a mode where you have to suffer for your art, you're going to like make yourself stay at the keyboard, even though like your shoulders hurt or something, and you should get up and go do something, like go stretch, or like you're hungry. It's like, go to the kitchen. Like, I cannot tell you the number of times I've been writing and then I'm like, I should go eat. I finally go eat. And then I like have a great idea, because I'm just like cooking eggs. And like the second you're not doing what you think you're supposed to be doing, you get the idea that you were trying to get. So yeah, change of scenery, variation just in your routine, and make all of that a part of your writing practice. Okay, yeah, to continue this, other ways to do this, I call it the M word, because it's meditation. And I find that like, I notice the reaction myself when people are like, you should try meditating, is that I'm just like, but I don't want to, because it's like, I don't know, it doesn't feel productive to just sit there and do nothing. George Mumford, if you're at all interested in learning about kind of like a very cool way to approach productivity through a meditation lens, look up anything related to George Mumford. He taught meditation to the Chicago Bulls, to the Lakers. He taught Michael Jordan. He taught Kobe Bryant how to meditate. He's just a really cool dude. And he has a problem with like the phrase, don't just sit there, do something. Because he's like, no. We should tell people, don't just do something, sit there. Like, it is so much easier to kind of like keep yourself busy rather than just like sit there and kind of like get like connected to like, what is it you really want to write? What is it you really want to say? Quieting your mind down, it can help. If that doesn't appeal to you, there are a lot of like easy ways to meditate. You can do like shower thoughts. That's why they're a thing. It's because like you're relaxed, and then you get all these great ideas. Driving in your car, listening to music, going for a run, shooting hoops, like anything that fires you up, that's fuel for writing. Laying in bed and relaxing. I find that so many of my good ideas are first written as notes on my phone because I'm just like lounging or, not doing anything productive when I get that idea. And then also like habit is much easier to make with positive association. So like prioritize doing something fun while writing every day, and like give yourself treats, like hilarious little typo there. That's supposed to say helpful. Okay. That's kind of all the self-helpery writing stuff. There's kind of no other way to say it, but it works. It really works well. Here we have a plot embryo or a plot wheel created by Dan Harmon, who created Rick and Morty. And with writing an outline, you definitely want to allow yourself to be as detailed as you want in writing out like a summary. In a script world, we call it a treatment. I know some writers write like a 20-page word outline. I think the last time I did NaNoWriMo, my outline was like 22 pages, and it was really helpful. It was really simple. It was just like, and then. But this is going to be helpful for like no matter how you want to outline, but also for no matter at what stage you are in the first draft. Like if you have something like this to return to that's just like really simple, that just kind of like captures the big moments and big changing moments of your story, that's going to be huge. When I first saw this, I had no idea how to interpret this. It's fun because you start with the orange piece. And so what I love about this is also like how I was taught script structure and story structure at USC for screenwriting grad school, because you start with the orange slice. And I'm going to use the example of The Matrix to show how this kind of aligns with this wheel. So at first, Neo is in his comfort zone. He's a computer programmer or something, or a hacker. I haven't watched the movie in a little bit, so you're gonna have to forgive me. He's like, you can tell he's not connected to his life. He's kind of depressed, but he's kind of accepted that that's just fine and he'll just be depressed. So that's his comfort zone. And then move to the red pie slice. He wants something. Morpheus like kind of pulls it out of him. It's like, you want to know the truth. I can show you the truth. And he does want to know the truth. So he takes the blue pill, red pill. I can't remember. He takes the pill that shows him that the Matrix is a thing. So then he's in an unfamiliar situation because for the first time he's not in the Matrix. He is in the real world. And oh my God, it's so much different than he thought. So that's an unfamiliar situation, which is great because that causes conflict. He doesn't know how to do things, all things that are very interesting when things are going wrong. At this stage in outline, I really would encourage any writer to just kind of focus on like collecting inspiration, like getting a lot of ideas and coming up with the scenes that just make you excited to watch them. Oh, I meant to say this earlier, but the you-ness of your book, another way to think about that, and like a question that like I've written this on a sticky note, I put it on my desk, because like when you're in the weeds of a book, this can be really helpful to remember. In writing a book, you are writing the book that you wish existed so you could read it. So what is your dream book? And like for me, in the book that I'm writing, I was like, I want to write like a really epic romance, like kind of Notebook level romance, but I want it to be about like two really real feeling like depressed people. So yeah, that's a novel I'm working on. Like I'm writing my dream book that I would love to read. So yeah, you can write that on a sticky note. You are writing the book that you wish existed because you would love to read it. And that is the only audience you have to please, is yourself. That can kind of be a helpful reminder. First drafts, again, you don't question it. You just let it be what it is. Okay, so yeah, so Neo is in the real world, unfamiliar situation. He has to adapt. He's doing the fighting thing. He's learning that. And he gets what he wants. He becomes really good at all of this. Like he's a good fighter. And he's the one. Morpheus thinks he's the one. I know the Oracle says like, no, he's not. But like, it seems like things are going well. And then I think their friend who they thought there was a friend betrays them. Also, so sorry if you haven't seen The Matrix. I meant to say, feel free to mute it if you are worried about spoilers, because I don't want to spoil a movie for anyone. It's a little late to say that. Anyway, so he pays a heavy price because this betrayal of this person leads to the death of like at least two of their friends, and it's super sad because you really love these characters. And the other thing that doesn't work perfectly with this pie thing, or the change I would make, is the pie slices need to be different sizes because like orange pie slice is a good size, red pie slice is a good size, the pink one should be bigger, the purple one should be bigger, the blue one should be bigger, and then the green one, the other green one, and the yellow one should be like much smaller. And the last two, the return to familiar and having changed, are like super small. Because I would argue with the Matrix, he fights or whatever, people die, but they're successful. And then he returns to the Matrix. And so, yeah, I think you could argue that the return to familiar and having change are like maybe just the last two scenes of the Matrix. He returns to the familiar, but he is changed. He's like walks different. He's just, you know, he's a man with purpose. And also then he flies, and that's different. So he changed, he has new skills. He's not the same man he was in the comfort zone, even though he did return to the familiar Matrix world in that scene. Okay, so basically that's an example of a way to, in a simple way, organize the big emotional moments and changes. They're all very like character based. I think it is much easier to like write a first draft if you're focusing on like one main character. But I know there's an author, Danya Kakofka, I think I'm saying her last name right. She wrote this book called Girl in Snow. It's like a mystery, and she writes it from 3 different characters' perspectives that rotate. And I think what she did was she wrote the book 3 times from each character's perspective. So she kind of did like a first draft 3 times, which I thought was like a really cool way to do it. Rather than doing the headache of like flipping back and forth between characters. It was kind of like path of least resistance. Let's just like let this character tell the whole story, then this character, and then later she like worked them together. Anyway, but definitely easier at first to like focus on one character and like their journey, their hero's journey, whatever you want to call it. So that's something that like is simple. Oh, and what I love about this is like having this as a reference is great, because when you get into the stage of writing the pink pie slice, the purple one, and the blue one, like those are just going to be a big sections of your book. It is really helpful on days when you're just like in the weeds to be like, what am I doing? What are we here for? What is life? Why write? Why do we do this? Like you just have a quick reference, and that really helps you like be like, right, all I need to do is just make sure in these scenes I keep showing how this character is in an unfamiliar situation, or like how this character is adapting and getting better at XYZ. Okay, so there's definitely like, as I mentioned before, the pantser identity versus the plotter identity. The best way I can put this is that I just really would encourage an openness to have elements of both. The Hannah Montana Best of Both Worlds theme song, feel free to YouTube it. It'll be a very catchy way for you to remember this. to be like, I don't have to just be a pantser. I don't have to just be a plotter. I highly recommend just like jumping back and forth between the two. Okay, and this is my last slide. Yeah, so how to begin to get the story from brain to page. So there are definitely like more detailed conversations we could have in like later classes about like character want needs, like kind of bolstering the structure of your story and like thinking of different ways to do that before you begin to write your first draft. But at this stage, because I feel like driven workaholic people just like devalue this stage and don't do it, like exploration in I used to work at a marketing company, and they had this like shortened acronym for something. I forget what it is called, but it was something like research and discovery. They have a, like with clients in a contract, they have a stage in the contract that's like discovery, where it's like, we're not going to do this creative work and deliver it until you pay for us to like find stuff, like find new things. Because that's like how, my boss who owned his company, he was like, that's how I can guarantee good work, is if they allow us to value that as part of the creative process to deliver a cool whatever thing to them. So when it comes to outlines, in my opinion, I almost put the KISS, like keep it simple, stupid, but I just don't like the word stupid. It's just very negative. I was going to put keep it simple, Sally, because that's my dog's name. But anyway, then I just decided to say keep it simple. But yeah, your outline does not have to be complicated. I feel like for people who are like, my outline needs to be really complicated and like really involved and like include like, the arc and like this and all these like different things. It's like, it's maybe coming from like an insecure place or like a trying to control the process too much, which like, again, if you listen to like Neil Gaiman's creative advice, like there's just kind of a zenness where he's like, you just gotta let go. Like the writers I admire, the advice of like, all these like hundreds of podcasts I've listened to of authors, like they're like quick advice is like, let go. You gotta let go. You gotta practice that muscle, but it is one that you can strengthen. So at this stage of outlining where you're just beginning, embrace the discovery project. Do like your list of fuel things. Get a journal, make a playlist, actually do it. Assign yourself to make a playlist so you can listen to music. Find music that like to you is like, this is what makes me start to see the story. This is what makes me start to like see the movie in my head. Yeah. So for me, like I could share my books playlist with you. I don't know if it'll resonate with any of you, but it's like, it's got like turn of the set, 90s music, like, because it brings me back to a place when I was in early high school and Insecure, which is where my characters start. Like bring music into your writing practice that transports you emotionally to the place you want to be to write your story. That has huge value. Create a vision board. Go on Pinterest. I think the music playlist for me is like more important because like when I don't feel like writing, when I don't feel inspired, if I just like listen to the playlist for like 15 minutes while doing something else, even if I'm in like a cranky mood and I don't want to write, I like pretty much always will find like something that like I've been working on that I'm like, oh, I could make that. Oh, I like that idea. And then you use that to go write. So I find it to be like a good shortcut, this kind of like tone matching. So find songs that like embody the tone of different stages of your book. And it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It only needs to make sense to you. Yeah, vision board, Pinterest. I find that helpful just when I kind of want to figure out like, what does this character look like? Like, what does their room look like? And watch movies, watch TV shows, and like read books, especially like, just like take in other people's art and enjoy it. Cause oh man, the like great way to like brainstorm for me is to read an author whose voice I love, or to just like, or even just to read like an author whose work doesn't connect with me that much, because then I'll get bored and then my brain will start thinking of my own story and being like, I don't like this story, but I do like this. And then you're like coming up with ideas you love. So it's like, it's kind of just always about like tricking your insecure brain into feeling comfortable to like show its personality to you. That's a huge part of just getting to the good stuff with your writing and doing it in a way that's fun that you're going to keep wanting to do over and over, because writing, as we all know, is a long haul game. It just takes a long time to write a book, which I fought against for so long. I was like, no, I'm going to write this book in 3 months, and like then it was past then, like, okay, 6 months, and like I just was so stubborn. I was like, no, I can control how long it's going to take, and it didn't work, and I gave it up, and then I started to get much better stuff out of my writing. So yeah, just like break up your routine. And okay, the maybe outline. Oh, I don't think I talked about this yet. The maybe outline is great for basically either while you're in the middle of writing and you want to kind of plot out where you're going to write that day, but also at an early stage where you're just making an outline, where you're like, let's say you have a story idea, but you're not sure how it starts. Just start like bulleting. Maybe this happens, and like actually write the word maybe, because it's like a little magic spell. It just kind of tells your brain that it doesn't have to be good. You don't have to commit to this. By writing it down, you're not committing to this happening. But like in doing that, I find that it gets me unstuck, and it's such a simple thing, but it works. Like it really helps you to just like get out of your own way. And the part of you that's worried that it's not going to be good enough is the insecure part of you, where it's like, it has to be good now. And it's like, and an experienced writer is going to know, it's like, no, it does not have to be good now. It just has to exist. A first draft has to exist. And it just has to, like get on the page. And it doesn't matter how, or like, whether the transitions work. It's like, there's a natural like forgiveness that you really need in a big project, like writing a novel. If you do want to organize, with like headers, you can do like act 1, act 2, act 3, or you can just like kind of do this where it's like comfort zone and want something is act 1, unfamiliar situation, adaptation, gets what they want, pay a heavy price, all of that is act 2, and then return to the familiar and having changed, that's act 3, which is the shortest act. So they're, it's all kind of like, they're all different, but they're also all saying the same thing. It's just about what works for you, what lights you up, what gets you excited about your story. Okay, and last of all, the responsive outline, which is something, I don't know, I also call it the free form outline, but the responsive outline is you make an outline and I think the way I now outline is that I write my outline, and when I think it's about 80% done, when I think this outline is like 80% ready to like be shown to someone else, so it makes sense, I stop. That's all I need to do, because like I'm going to flesh out the rest of the details as I write it. And that for me has made writing the first draft much more fun. And also I think just like leads to higher quality stuff overall, because I'm allowing more discovery. There's Bigsby. He's just hopping down the stairs. Hi, buddy. It allows for more discovery. And yeah, think of the outline as a living document as you're writing the first draft, because you can basically like copy and paste parts of the outline and just like bullet it out like a section you want to write. I'm a big fan of bullets for outlining. It's very freeing, and it's also like easier to read later, because you're like, oh, you can clearly see just like where the different thoughts are. But yeah, and I would always like in my prose document, in my like Word document, I would just like dash like this happens, and then this, and then this, and then as I would like write out the stuff for that day, I would like delete my little like to-do list, or I'd turn it a different color, just so I could keep track. And that was really helpful to just kind of like not have to worry about where I was in the story. I could kind of like zoom in on the details of like this sentence and this moment. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. And I hope most of all what, what my little presentation did for you is that it reminded you of all the things you're already doing right, or that you maybe have done well with this in the past, but you didn't really like consider it as like valid to be part of your process. But it is. It's just not really respected in our society. These soft skills, these like step back, slow down. Don't just do something, sit there. It's not like very impressive to talk about. And like a lot of parts of like the society aren't going to like understand how that's productive, but we are not them. We are writers who have creative unrest, and we have stories to tell. So that is kind of all the things I wish I could tell 23-year-old me, though I'm sure 23-year-old me wouldn't have listened.
Are you still here? Thank you so much for watching this class. It's a longer video. Again, I'm teaching another class like this tonight on Zoom at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. I would love for you to join. Also, feel free to give this video a like. Feel free to share it with a friend. And once again, if you want to help support my teaching projects and fund more writing class videos like these, feel free to check out my Patreon page. It's in the link in the description below. Do your self-care stuff. Take care of your stress level. Hopefully things will be less stressful sooner rather than later in the world. And I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye. I hear you're gonna take a nap. Well, wait, bye-bye. Just sitting. Bye-bye. A very good quarantine buddy. Oh, you are sleepy, huh?